welcome to the Peace Dependency podcast. I'm your host, Frank, also known as Sir Mazer. Peace Dependency podcast hits double digits today, and to celebrate it, we have a true community member on our show. He participated in both CTWC and CTEC in 2020. He hosts both Euro Friendlies and CTL Champions Summit. And he is the very first Austrian maxout player. Of course, I'm talking about Tugi. We spoke a couple of days after the February tournament of CTP. We talked about CTWC, Champions Summit, and much more. This is our conversation. Tugi, welcome to the Peace Dependency podcast, and thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, Frank.
Hey, first question is always the same question to everyone who's new on the podcast, and that is, how did you get into NES Tetris?
Let me think. So actually, you know that BuzzFeed video with Eli Markstrom that came out in 2014 by BuzzFeed?
Yeah.
I actually remember watching that when it came out, and I remember just thinking like, wow, this is what people do. I didn't really think much of it, and I kind of just went on with my life for the next few years. And then I saw Jeff versus Jonas, which I kind of had the same reaction. Which I got more into it, but I didn't really get into NES Tetris back then. I just kind of thought, oh, this is a cool thing that they do. Then I think I remember even reading the Vice article with Jonas, interviewing him. Just thinking like, wow, okay, this guy seems pretty cool. And then later on, but I still didn't get into NES Tetris. And then I watched Joseph versus Jonas, and even then, I still didn't initially get into it. But then when then eventually, I don't know how it started, but you know, the videos just kept getting recommended to me on YouTube, and then I really started to get into it. I think sometime in maybe summer of 2019.
Yeah.
And it was also around the time when so I used to really be into CS:GO, like into the scene and playing it and stuff. I was never really like any good, but it was my main game. You know, I put a lot of hours into it, and it was, you know, the game that I would usually play. And the thing about CS:GO is that I really enjoyed the competitive aspect of it. That you really had to practice a lot to get better. There was, you know, so much into the game, even though it's a pretty simple game, you know. But there's, you know, a ton of theory into it and stuff.
I've never played it.
Yeah. It really is. It really is fascinating. It really just, you know, on the surface, it looks like a very simple, just shooting game, but you know, you wouldn't believe like half the theory that goes into it. Like, it's crazy. So that aspect I really enjoyed. But the aspect I really didn't enjoy was that the matches were 5 versus 5, and I didn't really have that many friends who were always available to play with. So I'd usually have to play with like random people on the internet who I just get queued up with, and at that point it just turns into a roulette of your enjoyment. You know, like if you get a good set of teammates, then you're gonna have a good time. But if you have a bad one, then you're just really not going to enjoy the next 30-ish minutes. So that's what kind of got me out of that game. So at that point, I was kind of just thinking like, you know, I was kind of just looking for a game to invest a lot of my time into, you know, something where I could, you know, practice hard and get better at. And then I thought about NES Tetris, and you know, I liked that it was single player, that I could just kind of play, listen to music or whatever, and then, you know, just get better and better at it. So I think right around the time before 2019 CTWC, I decided to get myself an emulator, start playing NES Tetris, and you know, I didn't want to get a full setup initially, but you know, I started playing. I really enjoyed it. Watched CTWC live, live on Twitch. I wasn't there, obviously, but and I really enjoyed it, and I really got into NES Tetris at that point.
Why did you want a full setup?
Well, because you know, I'm in Europe, and I wasn't interested in PAL, not because I was like, oh, PAL is stupid or anything. I just only looked at CTWC, which was on the NTSC version. So I wanted to play that version, of course, and I knew that you know, getting an NTSC setup in Europe was you know, going to cost at least a little bit of money.
It's expensive, yes.
Yeah, it is expensive. So I didn't want to make that investment at first. And then find out like, oh, I actually don't enjoy playing NES Tetris. So only after I really realized that I enjoyed NES Tetris was when I decided to get my hands on a full setup.
And when was that?
Actually, it was my sister lives in the US. She works there, and her company somehow has this thing where she can just ship things everywhere in the world like free. So she just has free shipping on everything. So for Christmas, she sent me over a console and the cart. And at first, I played on LCD, which was a bit, not that good. But then I got a CRT and had the full setup. I think by January, February 2018.
2018?
2020, sorry, yeah. Good.
And what was your PB when you switched from the emulator to the full console?
I don't think I had reached 500k yet. I can't remember for sure, but I think it was 400k ish, because I remember on emulator it was it took me a long time to get 300k. That was one of my barriers, and then I got 300k, and then I think the very next game I got 400k, but it took me a while to get 500k. So yeah, I think it was around 400k ish.
And what's the difference between an emulator and a console? Did you feel that instantly?
Well, since I was playing on an LCD, which has extra input lag, the difference between the console and the emulator in terms of input lag, I didn't immediately feel. And also because I wasn't playing level 19, where this really becomes an issue. I was mostly just playing 18, where it was more about just, dash control and stacking and whatnot. But the main difference that I actually felt was with the controller. I was playing with the real controller, and it felt so nice because I was just using one of those cheap €5 USB controllers, which are absolutely terrible. Those are honestly just the worst way to play NES Tetris. if you're playing on emulated, then just play on keyboard. A keyboard is much better than those things, because not only do they feel terrible, they drop inputs a bunch. They're just really not a good thing. So it was actually mainly the controller which made things easier. And then when I switched to CRT was when I really felt the difference. Like, wow, okay, like level 19 actually feels pretty playable this way.
Your first CRT was black and white for NTSC.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't really do that much research before I got my first CRT. I didn't know that it being displayed in black and white was really a thing. I think I remember asked in some forum once, like, and they just said, "Oh, just get any newer CRT, though it'll probably work," which it didn't. So I just decided to look for one which is 14 inches, which fits nicely on my desk, and I plugged it in. It was black and white, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why. And I tried all sorts of things to try and fix it. But in the end, I just realized, like, okay, my CRT just doesn't support NTSC colors, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Were you scared that you broke the game?
No, I wasn't scared that I broke the game. I knew it was probably some sort of connection issue, because I think I did plug it into my LCD again, just to see if everything just still looks fine. And yeah, it was fine. It was just with the CRT.
And how's your current CRT? How did you get that?
So basically, some months later, I think this was around September, actually, I saw a listing for a Sony Trinitron, which was 14 inches. And I got that for free, and that was also black and white, which was pretty annoying. So now I had two CRTs laying around, which both can display NTSC colors. And then I saw a post by this certain Dutch player called Sir Macer, who posted a picture of his NTSC setup, and it had a Panasonic CRT, which I vaguely remember seeing a listing for the on Wir Haben, which is the basically Austrian Craigslist, where you just get used things and stuff. So I remember seeing a listing of that. So I I reached out to you, and you told me the exact model number. It was the same one. So I decided to try and act fast and try and contact the guy. And luckily, it was still available, and I got it. And then I went home. I played with it. It was in color. I was so happy. And literally the very first game, I was just so happy playing with colors. And the very first game, I was just playing a random 19 game. and I actually initially wasn't even recording. I just wanted to test it, and then I realized like, hey, like I played the first 30 lines like almost perfect. So I decided to start recording on my phone, and I actually got a 19 PB on my very first game on the color CRT, and I was really
Yeah.
happy. So yeah, thanks again, Frank.
Yes, don't worry. I do have a different CRT now.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I've got a professional CRT.
Oh, well, now I feel betrayed. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I know there are a lot of people in the community who get very excited about these professional PVMs and whatnot, and I don't know. I'm just happy with my with my color CRT.
Do you have your old CRT still with you?
Yeah, they're just hanging about in my room. I don't really know what to do with them. I guess when I stop being lazy, I should probably just give them away somewhere or get rid of them. I mean, to be fair though, the first CRT that I had, um, which was black and white,
Yeah.
it actually it actually worked just fine. Like it was the only problem was that it was black and white. The display it looked more than fine. You know, it was a good CRT. And then what I actually also found out with the Trinitron that I got later on was that
Yeah.
when I plugged it into my capture card, the screen would just look very fuzzy, and I couldn't play on it. So
Oh no.
yeah. So that one, it made me appreciate my older CRT more. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know what to do with them honestly.
Them on your Austrian crack list.
Yeah, probably.
Hey, I think I owe you a apology. In the Peace Dependency podcast with Sharky, I listed all the people in the CTWC Top 64 Group B, but I forgot one person, and it was you.
Yeah,
You,
yeah.
Tugi, you are also in Group B of the Top 64 of CTWC, so I like to have this as a rectification. So my apologies for not listening to you. I laughed so hard when I saw your clip.
Yeah. I was just streaming on Twitch because I was listening to the podcast, and it was a good podcast. Honestly, I really enjoyed listening to Sharky's thoughts. And then you just went on about Group B, and then you listed every single person, and then I didn't hear my name, and I was really annoyed. I was just like, really, Frank, like, is this because I beat your Dutch guy? Like, is this the reason? Like,
Yeah, no,
like
it's
why?
not true. I don't know. I don't know what happened. The worst part is it was a prepared question, so I just effed up. That's all. But
Yeah.
Speaking of CTWC, we mentioned you participated in CTWC. What was it like to participate in the World Championship last year?
Well, actually, when we realized, so this was many months before CTWC took place, 2020. I actually was had the opinion that they probably shouldn't do an online CTWC, and I think my reasoning was when it just wouldn't be the same as winning it in person, because you know, like it's a different. I think it's a mentality that comes from watching other esports such as CS:GO,
Yeah,
where if you don't do it on LAN, so in person, it's not really worth anything. And you know, like now I realize, like, you know, of course with Tetris it's a different thing because you know, there's no difference with the game itself, whether you're playing it online or in person. Maybe
yeah,
nerves obviously might be a factor, but you know, it was when CTWC season came along, I wasn't thinking like, oh, this is just the online CTWC. Like, no, this was a world championship season. I was just as hyped for this as I was last year,
yeah,
in 2019. So yeah, I used to think that, and then when they made the announcement, yeah, I wasn't that pleased about it. I was kind of skeptical about it,
yeah.
and I actually was on the fence about playing in it. And one of the reasons was that I didn't think I was good enough to really justify the $50 that you have to pay as the entry fee.
Yes.
So I just thought, you know, like there's like I might be able to qualify, but you know, I'm not really that sure.
Did you already had your max out?
No, when they made the announcement, I didn't have my first max out, and that was also one of the things. I got a 900K, I think, back in May,
Yeah,
and at the time, I really did think I was capable of, you know, going the extra step and getting the max out. But it took me a few months of really just choking it. And it wasn't
Yeah.
that I was getting to like 970K and then just choking right at the end. It was more of a case of just whenever I would have any sort of good game, before I would even get to like 900K or whatnot, I would start thinking like, oh, is this the game? Is this the game? And start, like a million thoughts running through my head, just overthinking the whole situation completely. And I would just completely choke every single good opportunity that I would have. And it really started to, by the end, it really started to take a toll on me. Just really just thinking like, maybe I really just can't max. Maybe this is just how it ends. Maybe I just end up being a 900K player forever, and this is how it ends for me and NES Tetris. And it was just it was a lot of self-doubt. But then finally, when September, early September, I was finally able to get the max out, and it was just really just an incredible day. I didn't expect it, and I was just playing, and then all of a sudden I maxed out, and the reaction of me playing. This is actually, funny thing is, a few days before, like at this point, I was really starting to get annoyed at the game. So I just decided, I was desperate, so I just wanted to try anything. So I decided, you know what? Why? Maybe like some people said, covering the score helps. So I decided to cover the score, and only a few days before I maxed out, I got a 935, which was actually my PB, the first PB I had in about 3 months, and I topped out in, I think, early to mid 27, level 27. So it really was very much a max out choke. And it wasn't because I saw that I had that score that I topped out. It was more just just a mischief that just happened. Where I topped out because of it. And I really didn't feel too bad after that, because I knew like, hey, maybe with the score covered, I can actually just play and get the max out finally. So on the day I maxed out, I just started playing, had some good paces. I was actually streaming, which was a bit unusual for me, because usually I don't really stream while playing. And I was just streaming. There were some people in chat, just having a good time. And then I maxed out, and I just looked over to my OBS recording where you could see the score, and it just said 99999, and I just couldn't believe it. And my reaction is still up there on YouTube or Twitch or wherever. But I wasn't screaming or anything. I wasn't jumping up and down. It was something that I was just thinking about, like, what will I do when I finally max out? And I was just kind of just sitting there and just shocked. I just couldn't believe it. Like all of this, like the moment I started playing, the max out is the first big goal that I had. And I think that's the same thing with most NES Tetris players. You don't really look beyond the max out at first. You just work towards that big goal, and then afterwards, you can go on from there. So I had reached that big goal that I had, and of course, nowadays, maxing out is still a huge thing, but it's not as big as it used to be maybe like some years ago. But in a personal journey, it's still a huge, huge milestone. And I just absolutely couldn't believe it, and I was actually just streaming because I was waiting for my friend to come over, and I just then I saw him, and I just had a good day. I just kind of that high that I had. I was just feeling really good.
Was that the moment that you decided that you were going to participate in CTWC?
No, actually not, because I only decided. Actually, no. The only thought, the very thought that I would even play in CTWC, those thoughts only started to come about like maybe a week before registration ended. Because I decided to play in some of the qualifier tournaments. I played in Kingsman's qualifier tournament. I played in CTWC Europe qualifier tournament. And I think that actually no, I played in WPL CTWC qualifier, and it was kind of like I wasn't really thinking like, oh, I'm gonna go there and get a spot, but maybe I'll get there. Like I knew it was very unlikely for me to win one of those events. But it was also just like I like to play in tournaments. I want to play in as many tournaments as possible. So I decided just play in them, see what happens. I didn't get any I didn't win any of them, so I didn't get a spot like that. But before, like a week before registration ended, so there was also some people who were telling me like, why aren't you playing at CTWC? Like, come on, dude. And then I really started to think about it. Like maybe I should play CTWC. I really started to consider it, and it was only the last day of registration where I
No.
registered and decided, you know what, I'm just gonna play in the World Championships. Like, come on, dude! Like, I finally snapped my senses. It was
Yeah.
it was kind of funny because the same exact thing happened at the European Championship, which happened where registration was I think a month after CTWC, where I was kind of like, oh no, I already played in CTWC. I don't want to play in the European Championships. And then I don't know if it was the day where registration ended. It may have been, honestly, where I just came to my senses again. I was like, wait, why
Yeah.
am I not playing? Like, come on, dude, like go and play in these tournaments.
But you didn't own a PAL console at the time, right?
Oh yeah, I think that was one of the excuses that I kind of had in my head, why as to why I didn't want to play. And then I was in a voice chat with some of my friends, and Eliwa, who's another Austrian player,
Yeah.
was in the voice call, and I basically mentioned like, hey, I don't have a I don't have a PAL console, so I'm not going to play in the European Championship. And she was like, oh no, you can borrow one of mine. So there went that excuse. So
She wasn't going to participate in CTEC.
no, she was, but she said she had another one laying around.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, at that point I didn't have that excuse anymore. So then I realized like, hey, I really should play.
Do you have a PAL console right now?
I do have a PAL console now, because before I was actually playing on some sort of clone console, which wasn't approved for the European Championship. So that's what I meant with not having a console. I wasn't playing on emulator, but it's just that the clone console that I owned wasn't approved for the European Championships.
Yeah.
So and then after playing on the real console, I realized like, hey, this clone console really isn't that good because it has some sort of input delay. It just what I played on the real console, it felt so much better.
It's
So
like an emulator.
yeah, it kind of was. It honestly kind of was. I just couldn't, for the life of me, just load DAS properly on the
Yeah.
clone console, and I just for the longest of times, I just thought like, hey, PAL is just not my thing. I'm just never going to be any good at PAL. Um, so when I actually did get the real PAL console, just played with it for a week. Um, I realized like, hey, this clone console just isn't very good. So
Yeah.
I decided not to play on the clone console again until I would one day get a real console. But it's still, I'm a I'm a broke high school student, so I don't have like that many funds. I'm a bit reluctant to spend money,
Yeah.
and so. But actually, I was in a voice call again with some of my friends. I have to give a huge shout out to Hesely from Finland, who
Yeah.
also played at the European Championships. He runs some sort of retro gaming shop in Finland, or works there. I'm not
Yeah.
sure, but he told me, "Hey, I can send you a PAL console if you can just cover the shipping." Because apparently he told me that there were some consoles which were really ugly and nobody wanted to buy. So he said, like, "Hey, I can give give that to you for free." So and then I was like, "Hey, thanks so much, man." So I sent him the money for shipping. He sent it to me, and yeah, now I have a PAL console. I'm playing with it for like 2 to 3 weeks now, and yeah, loving it.
And what was your experience within CTEC?
I really didn't know what to think of it because it was 32 players. Regular monthly PAL tournaments are actually a double elimination format, and this one was single elimination. And with the PAL being usually ending like 100 lines before NTSC games do,
Yeah.
I felt like this would add a little bit too much variance to the results. So I really didn't know what to think about it. So I qualified with 600K, which I was pretty happy with. I didn't get a super high seed, but I was comfortably within there. And then I had to play my good friend Blau from Germany in the
Yeah.
first round, who who had bested me in a final of one of the monthly tournaments before.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, oh God, what's gonna happen here? And yeah, I was actually able to defeat him in the first round. He didn't play his best, but I was happy to get the win. Then I played against Simon from Denmark,
Yeah.
and was able to defeat him. So then I was in the quarterfinals. Like, hey, top 8. I'm pretty happy with that. And I had to play Wing in the quarterfinals, and we had a pretty good set, honestly. We went back and forth up until the decider, and then the decider, I really just had a really bad start and topped out very early, and then Wing won, which I didn't mind because Wing is a really cool guy and also a friend of mine. So and I was happy with my performance overall. I felt like I exceeded expectations, and I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, we will return to the conversation with Tugi in a minute. But first, if you like the Peace Dependency podcast, help us grow. Please share the podcast with every Classic Tetris fan. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Peace Dependency. You can like our Facebook page, Peace Dependency Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will have all the podcasts uploaded at full length. Also, you can listen to the Peace Dependency podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app. Join the Tetris Friendlies Discord server. Besides the fact that it's the place to discuss anything PDP, you can also participate in some lovely friendlies or put your ELO on the line in the various ELO battles. If you have a suggestion we need to have on the next Peace Dependency podcast, let us know through your socials, the Discord channel, or send us an email to peacedependencypodcast@gmail.com. Now, let's go back to the conversation with Tugi, where we will be talking about his experience in CTWC. Were you happy with your performance at CTWC?
At CTWC, so
that was double elimination.
That was double elimination. Well, first of all, the first big hurdle. So when I decided to sign up, my goal really was to just qualify. So when qualifying came around, I think that was probably the most nerve-wracking part. I remember, I was in school that day. I think it was on a Friday. I was just like, oh God, I really couldn't focus on anything about school. I was just thinking about this qualifier that was coming up, and I just didn't know. Like, oh my God, like I knew I had the skills. Like if I didn't choke, then I should be able to get a score good enough to get in. But I saw, there was already 5 days into qualifying, so I'd seen some guys do really well, exceed their expectations, but I'd also seen like a lot of people who I knew were better players than me not be able to qualify and just choke under the pressure. And I was just like, oh God, like, is this going to happen to me? I just really wanted to make it to CTWC. So, I played the qualifier. I just tried to take it as easy as possible. I decided not to look at any chats or whatever. I decided to only focus on the game. And I got a decent score in the first game, 90 or something, which at the time I thought like, okay, this has a pretty good chance of already making it in. In the end, it wouldn't have made it in, but it was good to at least have a good score on the board. And then later on, I got a 960, and when that happened, I just knew like, okay, this is almost surely gonna get me in. So then after that, I took it easy. I didn't get any huge scores after that, but I was happy with that. The next few days were a little bit nervous, to be honest, but then when the last day came around, I realized like a lot of crazy things are going to have to happen for me to not make it in. And in the end, I made it in. And, I just felt like, okay, mission accomplished. I made it to CTWC. And whatever happens from now on, it's just, it's just going to be a bonus on top. And the first match, I actually remember I woke up and one of my friends wrote me, said, hey, you're going to have to play Jake games 2 in the first round, which was a bit of an interesting opponent because, there's been a bit of history between Jake and the European community. So I was kind of just thinking like, okay, he's obviously an amazing player. So there's a very, very low chance that I was going to be able to beat him. But, I was just thinking like, hey, whatever's going to happen happens. And I didn't play that well against Jake, but I was able to at least take a game from him, which I was happy with. And I already saw, it was double elimination. And if I lost, I was going to play either the loser of Paul or Sidnev. And I was pretty sure that Paul was going to win because, it was I don't think Sidnev had played any competitive matches before, and Paul was
Not a lot, no.
Paul was a really really great player. So Paul was probably going to win that. So I was probably going to have to play against Sidnev, who I really didn't know what to make of, since this was there wasn't really much to go off on. He got his first max out in the CTWC qualification, and I just really didn't know like what was going to happen. So yeah, it did turn out I was playing Sidnev there, and I will have to admit, like, I was a bit of a fool going into that because I didn't think that Sidnev was going to play that well. But the first two games went on, and he was just on like max out pace on both games, like even above max out pace on both games, and I just couldn't keep up. I was just like, holy hell, like I can't. How is this guy so good?
I was rooting for my fellow Dutchman. Can't lie.
Yeah, I mean that's fair enough. So I just thought, I played a lot of matches before, and I was able to pull off a lot of reverse sweeps. So I knew, like, for a reverse sweep, what you need to do is just focus all your energy into game three, because game three is the game where your opponent, who's 2-0 up, has all the momentum. So your goal is to just break that momentum, just somehow be able to win game three. It sounds obvious, but you really got to win that game. That's the most important thing. And then when it comes to game four, they're already starting to think like, hey, this guy, if I lose this game, it's going to go to a decider. So you have more momentum, and if you're able to get it to the game five, then you really think like, okay, I've got him now. You've got all the momentum. The opponent is more than likely going to think like, oh god, I'm going to get reverse swept. So that was just what I was thinking. It was more of just a mental thing for me, not to panic when going 2-0 down against Sidnev. So I just thought, just keep it calm. Try to keep playing, try and take your openings. And the next two games, he was actually playing with higher efficiency than me, well into post transition, but he topped out early into post both times. So I kind of had to pull off two, not super hard, but under the pressure, not that easy chase downs, and was able to complete them. And then by game five, I knew like, okay, I've got the momentum. And he had a rough game five. I was able to take that one. So I was, I expected of myself to beat Sidnev. It sounds, a little bit, but I really did think of myself like, hey, you really should be able to beat Sidnev. And I was just happy to do so. But it was by no means easy. Sidnev made it really hard. And Sidnev is now probably a much better player than I am at this point. He has now a 1.2 million personal best, and is a really, really crazy good player. So I was just happy to get a win over him, looking back now in hindsight.
And after you beat Sidnev, you had to face either Nanu or Sharky. Were you terrified of one of them that you knew you were going to play them?
The thing is, I really don't get that terrified of opponents. Not that I think like, oh, okay, I'm going to beat them. It's more of a case of, when I'm playing against somebody who I know is a much, much better player than I am, I usually get into the mindset of, I have nothing to lose. So I don't really play with any pressure when I play against somebody who I know is much better than me. So I really wasn't thinking that. I didn't know who I was going to play. It turned out I was playing against Nenu, who, it was more of just, I was just really happy to play against Nenu because Nenu's such a great player. He's one of the most decorated players in the online scene. So it was just, for me, I was just happy to play against him. I just thought to myself, like, hey, try your best, see what happens. And in game one, I topped out at nothing points, which was a bit annoying. But
the club of zero.
It wasn't zero, but it was 100K or something, which is in my head basically nothing.
Okay.
At the CTWC at least. And then I had a really good game too, where I was at more than comfortable max out pace on 27. And at this point, I'm not even thinking about trying to win the game. I'm just trying to say, like, hey, let's try and get a max out in CTWC, because that'll just be, because I'm not expecting to beat Nenu. Like, nowhere in my head am I thinking like, hey, I can actually beat Nenu. I was just thinking like, hey, let's try and get a max out in CTWC, because that'll that'll be something to remember. And
Yeah.
I missed a Z spin, I think, on 27, which basically killed my chances. I On 28, I did something pretty stupid in hindsight because Nene was catching up, and I what I should have done is trying to just get like two Tetrises, get a one off, and win the game. What I
Yeah.
decided to do instead was switch to center well and try and potentially set up for an extra Tetris just so I can get a max out.
Yeah.
And that nearly backfired completely on me because I only got one Tetris after that, so I didn't get a max out. And then it was catching up. So if I didn't get that Tetris, then it would have actually won that game. And yeah, so I was just in the end happy to have won that game. And then game 3 again, I think was an early top out, and then game 4, he was. I actually had a pretty good lead, I remember, but I just had a dig which I just couldn't get out of, and yeah, he won. Which I had a tiny bit of regret at that game because I thought like, hey, it would have been really cool to bring Nenu to a decider, but it it is what it is. Like I was more than happy with my performance. As I said before, my goal was to just qualify, for the World Championships, and winning a match at the World Championships was just the cherry on top. And I was decently satisfied with how I played. Under the pressure against these great players like Jake and Nenu, and yeah, I was really just happy about that.
Moving on to something else. You live in Austria, and Austria is now part of the German national community. Are you okay with being in a German community, or do you want to be part of your own national community?
I really don't mind much of the German guys. I think a lot of them are cool guys like Mark and Poet, and both Marks actually, and Blau as well, and some others. So I really don't mind that. I don't really hang out with the German community as much. I kind of have like kind of separate group of friends, which I hang out with.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it would be cool to get like a Austrian scene, but there's really just not that many players. So, as I mentioned before, Liwa, who is as of recently also a maxout player. She actually lives in Vienna, and yeah, I mean, I've met her a few times. She helped me out with the PAL console for CTEC, and so we've got two at least decent players in the country, which is I'm happy about that. I'm not completely alone. And yeah, I mean, it would be cool to get a scene, but it's not really the number one priority right now. Like, I don't mind being in the German scene. Like, there's no real need to try and separate right now, since there's not really that many German people. Sorry, Austrians in the community, anyways. So yeah.
How do you tell your friends or family or people, I don't know, maybe from your school, that you were going to participate in the CTWC, that you were going to participate in the CTEC, or even the fact that you play in Classic Tetris?
There's actually a bit of a funny story regarding that. Um, back in January of 2020, I decided to randomly qualify for a CTM, and because back then I wasn't sure about trying to join the online scene because I had this little pipe dream, which I think a few players have had, which is to just not be known in any online scene and trying to like show up at a CTWC as this amazing player and just surprising everybody. So this was this little pipe dream that I had, which looking back is really silly.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I decided to just come to my senses and join the online scene. So I qualified for CTM. I was in the community tier. Actually, no, there weren't even community tiers back then. It was just a community tournament, and I played a player called Cryptonick from Scotland, who was who was actually a really cool guy. But yeah, I was really expecting to win that game, and I remember I told all my friends about it. Like, hey, I'm gonna play in this Classic Tetris event, and they're like, oh, cool, Classic Tetris. It was just just kind of something cool that I wanted to share, and I told them all to watch it live, and I I completely choked. I played really badly, and I lost that set. So ever since then, whenever I tell any of my friends about like, oh, I played in the World Championships, or oh, hey, I played in the European Championships. Like I'll tell them like, hey, I'm gonna play at the Classic Tetris World Championship, and they're like, hey, like cool, but when is your rematch with Kryptonic? Because that's the only thing that they think of when I talk about Classic Tetris. I mean, yeah. So that's them. I mean, yeah. I mean, they do find it cool, but they do like to tease me about that little incident.
It could be Battle of the Friendly Host. The Euro friendly host.
Yeah. I mean, I really should just try and message him one day and be like, hey, just to appease my friends, can you please just play a friendly against me?
Then on Friday nights, the Battle of the Euro friendly host on Friday nights with Kingsman on commentary.
Yeah. Maybe that's a thing we could do
with Burp and with Kingsman. So you have all friendly hosts.
I don't know. I don't know how a duo of Burp Wizard and Kingsman would sound like, because they're both very dominant.
Yeah.
So I wonder how a duo with those two would sound like. But I'm sure it'd be great. Yeah.
I think everyone will laugh their ass off.
Oh yeah. I mean, I laugh my ass off every single time I listen to Kingsman. Like Friday Night Friendlies is easily my favorite show. In terms of the Tetris scene. And the thing about Monday Night Friendlies, hosted by Burp Wizard, is that it's usually a bit late for me to watch. But the few times I was able to watch and I played in it once, Burp Wizard is an excellent commentator. He's really good. And apparently the story goes that Kingsman was just randomly saw this guy restreaming a match on Twitch, and so like, hey, you're going to be the next Monday Night Friendlies host. And I can see why, because Burp Wizard is an excellent host. Yeah, I really wish I could watch more of his stuff because his commentary is excellent. It really is top notch.
How did you become friendly host?
Well, basically, I was. I think it kind of had to do with the fact that I was actually a moderator on Kingsman's server. And the reason why I was a moderator on Kingsman's server was because a tournament that I host called the Champions Summit, which is linked with Classic Tetris League. Its first season was actually it all took place on the Friendlies Discord because I didn't really have a place to do it. It wasn't affiliated with CTL at that point, so I decided to host it on. I decided to ask Kingsman if I could have my little corner there, and he was like, "Yeah, sure." He made me a moderator, and then by the next season, it was all on Classic Tetris League. And at that point, I was kind of just a moderator for no reason whatsoever. And so, I mean, I don't know exactly why he asked me, but basically, one day, Kingsman asked me because Your Friendlies was kind of on hiatus because Kryptonic, the former host, was having personal things he had to attend to. So that was kind of on hiatus. Kingsman just wrote me one day like, "Hey, you want to do Your Friendlies for 2021?" And at first, I was kind of reluctant about it. Same exact thing as registering for the World Championship and CTEC. I was kind of reluctant about it, saying like, I was kind of thinking like, hey, I don't really know if I was be able to do a good job, because if I was gonna do it, I really did want to do it right. So I talked to some of my friends about it, and I have to give a shout out to my friend Tim from England. 666 Tim, yeah. He basically told me like, are you stupid? Like, of course you should take it. And then he kind of brought me to my senses. I realized like, of course I have to. Kingsman is asking me, so I gotta accept. Like Your Friendlies is a fun show, and I really do enjoy hosting it. Having done it now for a few episodes, and Kingsman is just really just one of the coolest people I've ever met. He's just, I really don't mind, working with him. I really enjoy working with him,
Agree.
So, yeah.
And are there some changes that you wanted to make to the Euro Friendlies, or did you want to stick to the format that's already there?
I mean, the format itself was kind of loose anyways. It was kind of just, play friendly matches on Thursdays. There was really not that much to it. So, I decided to just, try and do my best with it, try and host as many friendlies as possible, and try and get, the occasional pre-booked main event match. We were able to, for the first episode. Kingsman was also helping me out because he also wanted to make the first episode like a real big thing. So we were able to get Anna D versus Aliwa for one of the matches, and then for the for the final match, we were able to get Brendan BV versus Richard, which was a super hype match because for my money, I mean those two guys are the best two players in all of Europe. They'd never played a match before on the NTSC version. So
against each other,
yeah. So that was the first time that they would face off, and we were able to get that booked, and I was just really excited. So yeah, we were able to get those two matches, and then later on, it was I think it was the third or fourth episode where Svavar actually was in the chat, and he because I was thinking like, hey, I'd seen Svavar in the chat before. I was thinking like, hey, why don't I try and get like some sort of super match with Svavar? I was thinking like him versus Wing, the 2020 European champion, and he was actually in chat, and then he actually accepted a match from some player. I don't even remember. It basically, point being, it wasn't the match that I was kind of trying to think about, because I didn't expect him to just be in chat and just randomly accept the match in the open queue. So I was kind of like, okay, well, this is Faber's debut now. But for next week, I decided, hey, okay, let's really make something. Let's try and get Svavar versus Wing, battle of the European champions. They played at CTEC last year. This is going to be hype, and we're able to get that match booked, and it was a good set. Yeah.
Are there more dream matchups that you want to have on your Friendlies?
There's one which was supposed to happen last week, but due to some issues with one of the parties involved, we weren't able to get that last week. But we're planning on doing it this week now. So it'll probably have happened by the time this podcast airs.
So who is it then?
The plan is to get Dog, world champion, versus Adam on PAL in a best of 9, because Adam mentioned that because Dog had actually played on Euro Friendlies before. He just randomly came in and was like, hey, can I play a PAL match? And it was an NTSC show, right? But I wasn't going to say no to the world champion, right? If the world champion wants a PAL match, then he's getting a PAL match. So he got a PAL match. We got over 100 viewers. It was a huge thing. And yeah, so I decided, like maybe we can do Dog versus Adam. And he actually mentioned like, hey, me and Adam were thinking about doing best of 9 before, because Adam is really into his longer match formats. And so yeah, that sounded super hype. So I decided like, hey, want to do this on Euro Friendlies? Dog agreed. And then I wrote Adam. Adam agreed. So, it was booked, but then Dog wrote me like, hey, there's currently some blizzards going on in Texas. So the power, it's not 100% sure that he'll be able to play, that the power will be on during the time they're scheduled to play. So we just decided to, postpone it for next week. And but if you're listening to this, then I hope that it'll have happened, and it was a good match.
What did you think of CTP last Sunday? Dog had a 770k, Merca had a 814k.
It was just, I just couldn't believe it. But then again, I could believe it. I was just flabbergasted by just the level of play, because I knew it was going to be hype. The problem with CTP the last few months is that, I kind of felt like the standard was stagnating, because he still had like guys like Adam and Merker, at the very top, getting better and better. But it felt like it was a problem that a lot of the PAL players who are really good weren't playing in all the CTPs, and also that we didn't have anybody really outside of Europe other than Somalian captain. It was a really good player, but other than him, there weren't really that many like Americans playing in CTP, and the best players are from America. It's just a fact. So I'd been trying to try and get more people to play PAL and in the PAL tournament for actually a while, and finally, I'm not gonna say, it's not because of me that Dog decided to play. I mean, maybe it was, but I highly doubt that. But he just randomly came in to the server and said like, "Hey, I'll play PAL," and he played in CTP, and some other Americans had expressed their interest, but for now it was just Dog playing in Tier 1. And actually no. Smiling Captain played once again. Actually, the Mr. Valor actually also played, but he only made it to Tier 2 because I think he qualified on this first day of playing PAL. So of course he wasn't gonna go out and immediately be a great player. But I'm sure by the next CTP he'll be more than good enough to get into Tier 1. So I was really happy to, and that for Valor I can take credit. I was the one to convince him to play PAL, get a PAL setup, and and play in CTP. But
I was kind of surprised to see Mr. Valor in the CTP server.
Yeah, it was. I was just talking to him, and because there's always been a little bit of divide between the communities. A lot of people try and say like, oh no, it's just a joke, but there really is at least an underlying tone of resentment towards the communities. Like not by everyone, but it's kind of there on the low always. So I think that if more Americans play PAL and just more interaction between the two communities, then a lot of these problems would go away. And I mean, a lot of it was because of the infamous PAL maxout, which was uploaded by Jake Games to back in 2020 February. And at the time, a lot of the PAL players did say like, "Hey, this is fake," and in my opinion, in my honest opinion, like it was from day one, it was fake beyond a reasonable doubt. But it's just because a lot of the NTSC community didn't play PAL, and it got a lot of support from high-ranking members of the NTSC community who are close with Jake. So they weren't going to think like, "Hey, this guy just faked this thing." It's understandable because it's going to take a lot for you to realize that your friend is cheating something. I'm not, if one of my friends was accused of cheating, I wouldn't believe it, until the evidence was just super overwhelming,
True.
So it's understandable why, a lot of the NTSC community supported that video as being real, but, a lot of the PAL community didn't think it was real. And this went on for a whole year, and I feel like it really did cause a lot of tension. Yeah, absolutely. Because how does this look? This NTSC player plays PAL for all of 2 minutes and then gets a score which is completely out of reach for any other PAL player. Puts all PAL players to shame. Within just just a little bit of playing PAL. So this really doesn't look good on the PAL community, and it really did support the tone that PAL players, PAL really is just the inferior version, it's just the easier version, and but thankfully, and I have to give a lot of props to Jake for coming out and finally confessing that it was fake. I think some weeks ago now, about a year after he initially uploaded the video. So that charade was finally over, and so a lot of it was a lot of the tension between the communities was caused by that. So I really did think it'd be better if more Americans play PAL. And when Dog said like, "Hey, I'll play PAL," I was so happy. I was incredibly happy because I knew like the world champion playing PAL. It's just that sort of advertisement you can get for a version.
Definitely. You mentioned that you were also hosting the Champions Summit, CTL Champions Summit. For those who doesn't know, what is it?
Well, Classic Tetris League is a tournament hosted by the infamous Moodoos from Australia, which is now actually the largest online tournament in terms of amount of players. I think we overtook CTM some months ago. I don't know if we're still larger than them, but I'm not that sure. But yeah, anyways, Classic Tetris League is as the name suggests, a league where there's different divisions. You're usually in a division with around 5 to 6 other players, and basically you have to play each player within the season, and then whoever has the most points can get promoted to the higher division or get relegated to the lower division. That's the simple explanation. And the Champions Summit is a tournament which was started a few seasons ago, where I decided, let's try and make a tournament for the intermediary to lower division players, the winners of the divisions 6 and 7 initially, and then we made a tournament for divisions 3 to 5, so the winners of those guys, and just make a simple 8-player tournament, do it on one day, and the winner of that wins the Champions Summit. Just more of just like a little tournament to give more recognition to you, because you don't really win anything if you win the lower divisions. You don't really get a cool role or anything like that. You just kind of get a pat on the back, and then next season you're in the higher division. It's as simple as that. So Champions Summit, the aim of that is to just kind of showcase those players who were able to win those divisions, and as a little bit more of an incentive to go on and win your division.
Yeah, but the Champions Summit had his fair share of controversy already. I'm talking about three-way matches. What was the deal with the three-way matches?
Well, actually, the first controversy started, which was I'm sorry, I'm going to dodge your question a little bit. Sure. The first controversy was with who created the Champions Summit. Basically, the Champions Summit started when Rory, one of a member of the community, who I have to say is just Rory's one of the best members of the community, without a question. Rory is such a cool guy. Basically, he came out with a post in CTL like, hey, we're trying to make a tournament with some of the Division 6 to 7 players, and try and see if we can make a tournament for them, because actually there were tournaments, the Kingsman Invitational tournaments, were tournaments basically made for the lower division players, just so that they could play in the tournament and get their time in the spotlight. And Rory came out with that, and that season I actually restreamed a bunch for CTL. For that season, I broke the record for most sets restreamed in a single season, which was then promptly broken by Bill Plarkmeister, my good friend, next season, and then the season after that, and the season after that. We just went on an absolute tear with restreaming. But
Bill is always live.
Bill is always live. I mean, I love Bill. Bill
is a great guy.
One of my closest friends in the community. Bill's a really, really cool guy. And so that was me that season. So I decided to write Rory like, hey, like, why doesn't the guy who restreams the most sets organize the tournament? And then we got into conversation on DMs, and then we're kind of thinking about it. And then I came up with the idea of, hey, why don't we just make a tournament with all the winners of the divisions, and then kind of turn that into a thing. And and then basically Rory, who for that season I would say kind of acted as my consultant with running things, but I was doing all the organizing and stuff. And he likes to, for a while, he liked to say like, hey, I'm the creator of Champions Summit, and which is just
false.
It's a fair share of fake news, I would say. I created Champions Summit, no matter what Rory will tell you. And your question about three-way matches, I actually wasn't aware that there was that much controversy about them. It was just that I hate three-way matches. I think they're just the dumbest concept of all time. Like, I feel like three-way matches only exist out of necessity. Like, there's no actual there's nothing you gain from hosting a three-way match as opposed to a two-way match. Like, what's the point? But it's just because that season the division sizes just came out to the fact that I had a huge headache as to how to organize the tournament. So I just decided, hey, let's just make three-way matches just for this time, and then it will kind of work out fine. So that was a deal with three-way matches, and I've never done them again since. And I hope that I will never have to do them again.
Yeah. But I think the $1 million question is, was Guerrero robbed of the Champions Summit?
uh, well, I mean, the evidence looks pretty bad, since it really does look like the whole tournament was rigged for Trap Zone.
Can you explain what happened?
Oh, okay. So basically, it was the 6 and 7 Champion Summit, and this was in season 9. And basically, Trap Zone was a player in Division 7 who had maxed out. Was the second ever Division 7 maxed out player, and was the huge favorite for winning the Champion Summit that season. And there's actually a special rule. If you win the Champion Summit from Division 7, then you're able to actually skip Division 6, which is where you would go next season, and go straight to Division 5. So, there was more of an incentive for Trap Zone to win than any of the other Division 6 players. So, and then basically it turned out that there was only one day where Trap Zone could play. So I usually try and schedule it so that we don't really miss out on anybody, so that everybody can play. And and so basically we played on the one day where Trap Zone could play, and then Trap Zone, the incident occurred where, let me think. So I think it went to game 5 between Trap Zone and Guerrero. This was the semifinals, and I think Guerrero's internet went out, so we couldn't see a single moment of that game in game 5, and he actually ended up with a higher score than Trap Zone. But basically, since it wasn't really a game, since we couldn't see Guerrero's game for any single moment of that game, so we couldn't really say like, hey, okay, Guerrero wins now. So we had to replay it then, and then and then during the middle of the replay in game 5, Trap Zone pauses for a pretty significant time. I think in the end it was like 30 seconds or so, which usually pauses aren't allowed in competitive matches. But if you just accidentally pause once, then it's not really a huge problem. But this was a significantly long pause, and he said later on it was because his brother came into his room or something, and at that point, Trap Zone actually ended up winning that game, and we decided to let it slide and let Trap Zone move on to the finals, and where you would eventually win the tournament, which led a big army of Latin Americans and Moodus create this shtick of Guerrero being robbed. So yeah.
So, answer to my question, he was robbed.
No. No, Trap Zone deserved to win that game.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah.
What's so fun about restreaming?
Well, at first when I decided to restream, it was just because I enjoy commentating things. Like I don't think I'm like an amazing commentator, but I just kind of enjoy it. It's just watching the game, giving the players score checks, hanging out with the chat and stuff like that. It's just a fun experience, and it's your thing about restreaming is restreamers are the ones who really keep the community going. They're the backbone of the community, because without any restreamers, no matches would be able to play. So it's not that I'm not saying that like if you don't restream you're a terrible person, but it's if you restream, then it's a nice way of giving back to the community. So that's also a certain aspect of that. And I mean, like when I started restreaming for CTL that one season and restreamed a bunch of matches, I was just having a good time, just commentating. I wanted, I enjoyed commentary. I wanted to improve my commentary. So, I thought like, hey, best way to do so is to just, restream a bunch. And, I thought, hey, like I also want to be involved with organizing tournaments and whatnot eventually. So I thought, like as of me, who's basically just nobody in the community, I thought, hey, anybody can be a restreamer. It's highly appreciated by anybody. Doesn't matter who you are if you restream matches. So just thought, like, hey, maybe this is a good opportunity for me to gain experience and maybe kind of put myself out there in a way, So that was the fun of it at first. And yeah, I mean, I still do the occasional restream nowadays. I mostly stick to just doing Euro Friendlies and Champions Summit, but I'll still do the occasional restream from time to time, which I enjoy. So yeah.
How did you start in restreaming?
So I was always interested in restreaming, but the problem was my PC actually crashed a bunch at the time. So I kind of felt bad, like because I didn't want it to be that I'm restreaming, and then my PC crashes, and then the people who lose out on that are just the players. Because the thing about restreaming, which I honestly believe, is the core principle that you should always abide by when you're restreaming, is to accommodate the players over anything. That's something which kind of gets on my nerves sometimes, which when I watch restreamers and they're kind of trying to put entertainment above accommodating the players. You're not just commentating to be entertaining. Restream, the most important job of a restreamer is to make sure that the match runs smoothly, and that means giving the players score checks and just being good to the players, really. Another thing which I don't really like is when restreamers, while they're commentating, is to criticize the move that a player does, because it's
you do it in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, you do it in the heat of the moment, for one thing. And two, even if you are right, it doesn't help the player in any way. All that does is going to throw the player off, is because, they can't go back and change that move. So that all you're doing there is really just trying to be entertaining in a way, and which is just not really what you should do. You should always accommodate the players. So, I can understand why some people do it, but it's something that I really try to never do, is to criticize the players. And all I do is to try and stay impartial.
Yeah. When was it that you decided that you were going to be the MVP of CTL restreams in the summer of 2020?
So I did my first restream actually in the season before. It was I think it was Hufflepuffs against Beast and Shen, which was on a side note, which was actually pretty cool, seeing Hufflepuffs then make the finals, not the finals, semifinals, the CTWC. Like, hey, look, I restreamed that guy once. Like, holy hell. So yeah, I restreamed that match, and I didn't really do that much afterwards. And then the next season of CTL, I decided not to play, just so I didn't, I just didn't feel like playing the next season. So I decided, okay, I'll try my hand at restreaming, start doing a bunch of them. And then it kind of just kept going and going. And then I realized, okay, I'm doing a ton of restreams. Like, what's the record for most restreams done in a season? And I realized it was, I think the number was a little bit over 100 by Kingsman once. So I decided, like, hey, might as well try and go for that. And yeah, I was able to break it. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have done it like if I didn't actually enjoy it. Like, just trying to get that record really is kind of a stupid reason to restream a bunch of sets, in my opinion. It really doesn't make any sense.
True.
But if you're enjoying it, and then just as a side bonus, so there's no harm in that.
And what's it like to be the villain of Vienna?
It's fun. It's fun.
Who came up with the nickname, and how did you get it?
So basically, I asked. So the Mr. Valor does coaching sessions for players who ask him. He does it for free. He does it in his own spare time. So it's really cool of him to do. And the thing about his coaching is that some players like to make fun of it, because maybe like they think like they're better players than Valor, which is absolutely like asinine. Making fun of him for that, because it's just because somebody has a higher PB than you, or somebody has a lower PB than you, doesn't mean that they can add useful input to your game. So I really do feel that Valor is an excellent coach. When I had my coaching session with him, he really did a very, very good job of just pinpointing the repeating mistakes that I would do. And it really helped me, and he does a really good job with other players as well. He really does know his stuff. So yeah, if you're Valor is an excellent coach. But anyways, yeah, I was asking him for a coaching session, and he wrote in his little info tab where he would list the upcoming coaching sessions, and he wrote Tugi, but he didn't have a nickname for me. So I was kind of like, hey, why don't I get a nickname? And and then Kingsman was like, oh, you want a nickname? It's like, oh, what about the Vienna sausage or something stupid like that? And
Oh no.
I told him like, oh yeah, very funny because I'm from Vienna, ha 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 ha. And so and then he came up with well, I was gonna say Villain of Vienna, but you're too nice. And then Valor was like, nope, that's a great nickname. I'm gonna keep that, and then it kind of stuck from there. So yeah.
It's now, if you play a match on Kingsman, you're not Tugi, you're the villain.
Well, actually, now I'm known as the Toxic Bully for some other reasons, but I think Villain of Vienna is still my main nickname.
Toxic and villain is maybe practically the same thing.
Yeah.
Hey, my final question for you is: what are the things you want to do in the future?
Well, I I want to keep playing. I still have some. I really don't see myself quitting anytime soon. It's not really on my mind. I'm just thinking about just keeping it going. I'm really enjoying playing. Right now my goals are to get a 700K on PAL, which I should be able to get. I think it's just a matter of playing more games on PAL, and then on NTSC, my goal is to get 1.2 million with DAS, and then from there on, I don't really know what my main goal is. I think I told myself my truly end goal for NTSC might be to get 1.3 million with DAS, which is something that nobody's ever done before. And my goal isn't to do it like be the first one to do it. It's just more of something to myself. It's a goal for myself, and when I get that, I can truly say like, hey, this is my crowning jewel of what I've done here in Tetris. It's just more for myself. I'm not really looking for recognition. Like that's the thing. Like I don't play the game to get recognition from others. I just play it, to play for fun, and I set my goals for myself. I want to prove these things to myself that I'm able to get them. And so that's just with playing, I just want to keep playing and keep enjoying it really, and with some goals in mind. And I mean, with this whole pandemic stuff, it's obviously hard to go to live tournaments and stuff, but
True.
it absolutely is on my mind to go to some live tournaments in the future. I absolutely want to attend CTWC in person one day, whether it's this year or next year or whenever. And that's definitely one of the things that I want to do. And also European Championship, because that's where I'll probably meet a lot of my friends who I've met over the last year or so. And I'd just love to go there. But of course, with this whole pandemic stuff, it's a bit hard to say that I'm going to do it this year and stuff. But if it's possible, then I would like to do that. And eventually, one day, this is just kind of a little bit of a dream in my head, is to eventually host a tournament in Vienna. I don't know if I guess I would have to be the one to host it, since there's not really that many players.
The Vienna Open.
The Vienna Open, yeah, maybe. I absolutely love to host a live tournament in Vienna one day. I don't know. I don't have any experience with hosting any live tournaments or whatever, but it absolutely is a little goal of mine to do that one day.
Tugi, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, no problem, dude. Thanks for having me on.
And with that all being said, this will be the end of the Peace Dependency podcast. Thank you all for listening, and make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget to join the Tetris Friendlies Discord server and follow me on the socials @SirMason. For now, have a great Tetris month, and I will see you all in April. Bye!